You have no friends because you are incompatible with domesticated people. That is not weakness. That is a diagnosis. I know exactly how you got here. It was not random. You clicked because there is a voice inside you that never went quiet. The one that says you are not like them. That tries to fit in, but always feels like you are wearing a costume that was not made for your body. You have tried. You forced yourself to go to the parties, to laugh at jokes that were not funny, to pretend you cared about the conversation, the shows, the sports, the drama of someone you barely know. And what did you feel? Not relief. Not belonging. You felt sick. Then you went home, closed the door, and felt that strange thing. A silence that was honestly more real than anything you heard in that room. And then came the doubt. The doubt no one says out loud. What if the problem is me? While everyone else seems to connect effortlessly, you are here, analyzing why you cannot. You tried being more open, more easygoing, more normal, and nothing changed because you are not trying to heal a weakness. You are trying to suppress something that was never meant to be suppressed. But you were sold a lie. You were told that loneliness is a symptom, that anyone who ends up alone has failed the most basic test of human existence. You know why they tell you that? Because you were sold a lie. You were told that loneliness is absence, that friends are metrics of social health, that the more connections you have, the more complete you are. That is a lie. Loneliness, for certain types of minds, is not a deficit. It is an immune system. It is the organism rejecting what it cannot digest. Nietzsche knew this. He did not write for crowds. He wrote for the few capable of bearing the weight of what he said. Schopenhauer spent decades in deliberate isolation and produced some of the most penetrating ideas in Western intellectual history. Evolutionary psychology calls this the apex paradox. The more specialized and efficient an organism becomes, the smaller and more selective the circle it can sustain. That is not pathology. That is adaptation. In this video, I am going to show you the 6 faces of high-performance isolation. You will understand why your system rejects the superficial, why your presence activates other people's shadow, why living in the future makes you incomprehensible to people who live in the present, and what to do with all of that without destroying yourself in the process. But I need to warn you. This is not self-help content. There is no morning routine list. There is no promise that you will make friends. What you will find here is a mirror. And some of you will not like what it shows. If you need comfort, close the video now. But if you are willing to understand why you are the way you are and what to do with that, then take a breath. Because phase 1 begins now. And it is going to show you the most dangerous thing you possess. The ability to see what others cannot. Phase 1, the detector. You see what they cannot bear to see. Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. Lao Tzu. But there is a darker version of that truth no one quotes. Those who see are exiled by those who prefer not to. Most people listen to words. I support you. We are friends. You can count on me. They accept those phrases because it is easier. Because questioning is exhausting. Because the alternative, seeing what is underneath, is too disturbing. You do not have that luxury. Your brain does not process declarations. It processes patterns. When someone pays you a compliment, you do not hear the compliment. You notice the half-second of hesitation before it. You see the smile that never reaches the eyes. You detect the voice pitch that rose slightly when they agreed with something they clearly do not believe. Psychologists call this thin slicing. The ability to extract real patterns from minimal windows of experience. You do it automatically, effortlessly, and without being able to turn it off. The problem is not your perception. The problem is that it is unbearable for the people being perceived. When you walk into a room and stay quiet, it is not shyness. It is analysis. And people feel that. They feel they are being read. That the persona they spent years building, the funny one, the confident one, the loyal friend, is being examined by someone who is not going to buy the performance. That terrifies them. And terror turns into hostility. You did not lose friends because you were toxic. Many fled because you were the only person who did not applaud the act. And in the theater of collective illusion, the only punishment for not applauding is exile. Your perception is not a social defect. It is a cost. And you pay that cost with loneliness because you refuse to pretend you do not see what you see. That has a name. It has a function. And it has a strategic use that most people waste. If you have ever been called intense, difficult, or too serious, comment, "I see what they hide." Phase 2. The sovereign, you cannot be controlled, and that terrifies them. Nietzsche did not call it willpower. He called it Willzurmacht, the will to power. Not in the sense of dominating others, but in the sense of not being dominated by anything other than yourself. Most people live in invisible collars. Those collars have different names: social approval, fear of exclusion, need for belonging. And the ones holding the leashes are groups, friends, family, colleagues, that operate not as democracies but as micro-tyrannies with unwritten rules everyone pretends do not exist. We do not like him, so you cannot like him either. We believe this, so you must believe it too. We are going to that party, so you are coming. Solomon Asch's conformity study proved that 75% of people will agree with an obvious lie to avoid contradicting the group. 75%. When the group says the short line is the long one, the majority agrees, not because they believe it, but because the cost of disagreeing feels too high. You are in the 25%. When a group demands conformity, your nervous system does not register social pressure. It registers threat. You do not feel discomfort when disagreeing. You feel discomfort when you do not disagree. That is not arrogance. That is how your integrity system is calibrated. That makes you a terrible herd member, and a natural target for any structure that survives through compliance, which is practically every social structure you have ever encountered. They did not exile you because you were difficult. They exiled you because you were uncontrollable. And in a system built on control, uncontrollable is synonymous with dangerous. Stop. Answer this honestly right now. Think of the last time you gave in. When you swallowed an opinion, agreed with something you thought was wrong, or went somewhere you did not want to go, just to avoid conflict. Did you feel relief afterward? Or did you feel that dirty thing, that sensation of having betrayed something inside yourself? Hold that answer. Because Phase 3 is going to show you what that betrayal costs over time. Phase 3, the architect you are building while they consume. Talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. Schopenhauer. The problem with aiming at an invisible target is that you spend years firing at something no one around you can even locate. The average person uses time socially, not by conscious choice, but by default. Going out, group chats, streaming, social media, work meetings that could have been emails, conversations about nothing that consume hours that never come back. They do not notice because everyone around them does the same, and collective normality anesthetizes the perception of waste. You experience time differently. Neuroscience describes two primary brain modes: the default mode network, activated in socialization, daydreaming, social processing, and the task-positive network, activated in deep focus, flow state, execution. They are anti-correlated. When one is on, the other is off. You cannot build a legacy and maintain a vibrant social life simultaneously. That is not a lack of effort. That is neural architecture. Tesla died nearly alone in a New York hotel room. Newton was known for his inability to sustain friendships. Michelangelo lived in permanent conflict with anyone who tried to socialize him. They were not broken people. They were people in constant construction. And construction at that level requires a kind of internal presence that leaves nothing left for social maintenance. When you started saying no to the parties, the outings, the repeated invitations, it was not arrogance. It was the recognition that your attention is the most finite resource you have. Every hour spent on social entropy is an hour stolen from what you are building. The cocoon has no social life. But it is where transformation happens. If you are in that building phase right now, isolated, focused, misunderstood, comment, "I build in silence." Phase 4. The mirror. You reflect what they hate about themselves. Phase 4. And this is where the darkest psychology enters. Jung spent decades studying what he called the shadow, the part of the psyche the individual rejects, represses, and refuses to acknowledge. Not because it does not exist, but because it is unbearable. Because seeing your own cowardice, your own falseness, your own weakness with clarity is one of the most disturbing experiences an ego can have. Now imagine what happens when that person meets you. You, who are quiet, self-contained, with no apparent need for validation. You, who do not perform happiness you do not feel. Who do not agree in order to be loved. Who exist in a contained way and do not ask permission to exist like that. They do not see you. They see their own shadow projected onto you. Your independence reminds them of their dependency. Your silence amplifies their internal noise. Your consistency exposes their inconsistency. And the human ego, when confronted with its own shadow, does not react with gratitude. It reacts with aggression. That is why you were attacked by people who barely knew you. That is why you were excluded from groups without having done anything. That is why someone who interacted with you for half an hour already called you arrogant, cold, difficult. They did not see you. They saw the mirror. And they broke the mirror. Most friendships are contracts of mutual illusion. I will tell you that you are right if you tell me that I am right. I will validate your suffering if you validate mine. You do not sign that contract. When someone complains about the same problem for the 10th time with no intention of changing, you do not say, poor thing. You ask, what are you going to do differently this time? And that simple, honest question makes you the villain. Being the villain in a coward story is a compliment most people will never understand. Look, I need to be direct right now. Think of the last person who attacked you without clear reason, who called you arrogant, cold, judgmental. Now tell me, what were they hiding that you, without saying a word, could already see? That is not rhetoric. That is a diagnosis. If you cannot answer that, you have not yet understood what you are. And if you can, then you already know that phases 5 and 6 are going to change how you use that understanding. Phase 5. The engine, you do not need them, and that terrifies them. Phase 5. And this may be the hardest one to hear, not because it is painful, but because it will require you to be honest about how much of this power you actually use. Psychologist Mihai Csikszentmihalyi coined the term autotelic to describe people whose motivation comes from within, from the act itself, not from external reward. You read because you need to know. You create because the idea is burning inside you. You discipline yourself because the version you are building demands it, not because anyone is going to applaud. Most people run on external combustion. They function as long as they have fuel from outside. Compliments, attention, validation, belonging. Remove the external fuel and the engine stops. Put an average person alone for 3 days without social contact and you will watch their ego disintegrate in real time. Because their ego does not exist without a reflection to latch onto. You are different. You are a generator. The fuel is born internally. And now understand what that means in terms of power. The primary weapon that control systems use, family, social groups, companies, even the algorithm, is the threat of exclusion. If you do not do what we say, we will ignore you. If you do not agree, you are out. That threat works on 99% of people because they are dependent on external fuel. They are hostages to validation. When they try that on you, the response is silence. Because you are busy. A person who does not need approval cannot be bought with attention, cannot be punished with silence, cannot be coerced through belonging. You are immune to the most widely used control mechanism in the history of the human species. That does not go unnoticed. People instinctively sense they have no leverage over you. And what cannot be controlled must be neutralized or avoided. But here is the real cost no one tells you. It is possible to use this self-sufficiency as armor against things that should be allowed in. It is possible to confuse independence with impermeability. And then the internal engine becomes a prison just as real as any external dependency. That brings us to phase 6. If you recognize this engine in yourself, comment, I need no external fuel. and think honestly whether you use it as strength or as a shield. Phase 6. The price. What happens when you accept what you are? Phase 6. The last one, and the most honest. Up to this point, I showed you why you see what others cannot see, why you cannot be controlled, why you build while they consume, why you reflect what they hate about themselves, why you do not need the fuel that keeps them running. Now I need to tell you what comes after understanding all of that. What comes is a trap. When you finally name what you are, when you stop apologizing for your perception, your loneliness, your inability to perform socially, there is a real risk of turning identity into ideology, of starting to use "I am different" as an explanation for everything, of stopping growth because you found a framework that justifies where you are, of confusing isolation with sovereignty, and loneliness with depth. The lone wolf is not free because it is alone. It is free because it consciously chooses when to approach and when to retreat. There is a brutal difference between the wolf that walks alone because it is its nature, and the wolf that walks alone because it learned to fear everything that comes close. Loneliness as a permanent state is not power. It is scar tissue from someone who was hurt and built walls so high that even they cannot get out anymore. Here is the final truth. You do not need many, but you need some. A mind in total isolation eventually begins to feed on itself, and that is not philosophical nihilism, that is real deterioration. The greatest outliers in history, Tesla, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer himself, were not destroyed by society. They were destroyed by the isolation they did not know how to turn into a bridge when a bridge was possible. The real goal is not permanent loneliness. It is permanent selectivity. You do not lower your standard. You hold the standard, and you wait. With real patience, not with pride disguised as patience. You stop looking for the tribe and start becoming the kind of thing the tribe finds. A lighthouse does not run across the ocean looking for ships. It stays still, it shines, and the ships that need light find it. Meanwhile, you use the silence, not as punishment, as a laboratory. Every hour without distraction is an hour you can use to become something worth finding. Every no said to a mediocre connection is a space opened for a real one. The empty chair beside you is not empty because you failed. It is reserved. Not for just anyone. For the rare few who can see you without being afraid of what they find. You are not alone because the world rejected you. You are alone because you have not yet found the few who can bear the weight of truly knowing you. They exist, but they only come to those who can endure the weight. So, what did you just learn? Phase 1. You see patterns others cannot face, and you pay for it with exile. Phase 2. You cannot be controlled, and systems built on control need to eliminate you. Phase 3. You build while they consume, and the cocoon has no social life. Phase 4. You are the mirror of their shadow, and mirrors do not make friends. Phase 5. You need no external fuel, and that makes you immune to the primary mechanism of social manipulation. Phase 6. Loneliness is not the destination. It is the temporary price of permanent selectivity. 6 phases. 1 identity. 1 cost. And a choice you are going to have to make right now. The world is getting louder, shallower, more dependent on external validation, on instant approval, on constant connection with everything and depth with nothing. While that is happening, you are here, watching, thinking, building, trying to understand your own mind. That is not coincidence. That is selection. If you made it here, you are part of a group with no popular name, no group chat, no ranking, but that exists. Outliers who chose the uncomfortable truth over the comfort of collective illusion. Now you have a real choice in front of you. You can close this video, go back to the cycle, try again to fit where you do not belong, lower your standard because the silence got too heavy. Or you can stay. You can use what you learned here not as an excuse for isolation, but as a compass for selectivity. You can start building, in silence, without validation, until what you have become is impossible to ignore. You cannot have both. There is no herd comfort and wolf power at the same time. The chair is reserved. Honor the silence that precedes whoever is going to sit in it. If this video said something you have never heard out loud before, comment, I choose the cold path. Not for me. To mark this moment for yourself. If this reached where it needed to reach, the like is how you say it is worth continuing to make content that does not soften what is real. If you want to continue this descent, manipulation, power, human nature, the things most channels do not touch because the algorithm punishes it, subscribe and hit the bell. There is much more coming. Next video. Why the most dangerous people you will ever meet do not look dangerous, and how the human brain is trained to not recognize them until it is too late. You are not ready to miss this.